Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Ohio EPA's first ever virtual compliance assistance conference. My name is Dan Sowery with the Division of Environmental and Financial Assistance here at Ohio EPA. And I'll be moderating this morning's keynote presentation with EPA Region 5's Director of Enforcement and Compliance Assurance, Michael Harris. Before we get started, I'd like to go through a few items to help you participate and engage with Director Harris during this morning's event. On this slide here, you will see a screenshot of an example of an attendee interface. You should see something that looks like this on the right-hand side of your computer desktop. For this webinar, you are listening in using your computer audio. If you are having sound issues, try refreshing your browser. If that doesn't work, log off and log back in or check your computer's audio settings. Please feel free to submit questions to Director Harris by clicking on the question mark icon and typing them into the questions pane. Andy Anderson with EPA Region 5 is here to assist us with the Q&A portion. You may send your questions in at any time during the presentation, and we will address them during the Q&A portion at the end of this morning's keynote. If we do not answer your question during the Q&A portion, we will reach out to you via email following today's session. A session survey will appear once this webinar ends. We value your feedback and would greatly appreciate it if you would let us know how we're doing and let us know if there's anything that we can do to further assist you. A certificate of attendance will also be included via email about a day or so after the session. 1 hour of registered sanitarian and sanitarian in training continuing education units have pending approval for this session. If you did not enter your RS or SIT number when registering for this session, please make sure you provide us with your number through the Q&A feature. Attendees seeking American Planning Association credit may do so through APA's self-reporting option. Log into your My APA account and select the self-reported credits option to receive credit. If you are seeking other CEUs, check out our conference agenda, which is attached to today's presentation. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to EPA Region 5's Director of Enforcement and Compliance Assurance, Michael Harris.
Excellent. Thank you, Dan. And good morning, everyone. As Dan indicated, my name is Michael Harris, and I am the Director of the Enforcement and Compliance Assurance Division for EPA's Region 5 office based in Chicago, which includes the states of Ohio, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, and 35 tribes. Before I get started into my remarks, I want to first apologize on behalf of our Regional Administrator, Kurt Thiede, for not being able to participate in today's event. I know he was very much looking forward to speaking with you all. I also want to take a minute to thank Ohio EPA for giving EPA Region 5 the opportunity to participate in this event. I know originally this event was scheduled to take place in late March, and as with so many other events, had to be postponed due to COVID. Unfortunately, we are still very much in the throes of this pandemic, but I appreciate Ohio EPA's efforts in rescheduling this conference and forging ahead. With that said, I would like to share a little bit about myself. Prior to being selected as a Region 5 Enforcement and Compliance Assurance Division Director in October of 2019, I had served as the acting director for this newly created division. The Enforcement and Compliance Assurance Division was created to provide national consistency between the organizational structures of EPA regional offices and headquarters. I will talk more about this later on. I have also served as Deputy Director of the Land and Chemicals Division, which is now known as the Land, Chemical, and Redevelopment Division, where I provided leadership for the technical and enforcement aspects of overseeing the RCRA, TSCA, FIFRA, and Leaky Underground Storage Tanks program. Prior to that role, I served as Branch Chief of the Enforcement and Compliance Branch in the Superfund Division, where I led the reorganization and creation of this branch. I have over 24 years of experience at EPA, working closely with our state, local, and tribal partners to support EPA's mission of protecting public health and the environment. Over the past few years, we've made a concerted effort to focus the region's attention on enhancing the strength of our partnerships with our state co-regulators, local governments, and industry. While working to cultivate deeper partnerships, the agency has also worked diligently to provide certainty to the regulated community, our co-regulators, and the general public. EPA wants to ensure that our partners have a complete understanding of the impacts of our actions, proposed and final, may have on human health, the environment, the economy, the communities we work in as well. Greater certainty gives the American people the ability to do what they do best: innovate, create, and produce new technologies that transform the world for the better. We have been taking a three-pronged approach to this: certainty to the states, local governments and tribes, certainty within EPA programs, and certainty in risk communication. First, certainty to the states, local governments, and tribes. As I'm sure you are well aware, states are the primary implementers and enforcers of many of our environmental laws and programs, and for good reason. Those closest to the issue are often best suited to address it. This is just another reason why we are working closely with our state partners and taking steps to rebalance federal and state roles. This is promoting the ability of our state and local that best serves unique geographic and economic needs of each state and its communities. And I want to say, I know this is something that our regional administrator, Kurt Thiede, feels very strongly about. Given his experience with Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, he fully appreciates the role that our state co-regulators play. Second, an area of certainty is certainty in risk communication. As an agency, we must be able to speak with one voice and clearly explain to the American people what are and what are not environmental and public health risks, and what we are doing to protect them. The third and final area of certainty is certainty within EPA's programs. This is especially true of our enforcement and permitting programs. We want to change the perception of the EPA perched, waiting to catch a violation. We firmly believe that if you set clear expectations, communicate and discuss those expectations with a majority of our businesses, they will comply with the environmental regulations. Through transparency and communication, we think we can have even better environmental protection. Here in Region 5, I'm happy to say that this approach is already paying off. Over the past few years, the region has become the lead region in air redesignations, resulting in cleaner air for residents, a more efficient permitting process for companies, and increased economic opportunities for those communities. We have also made great strides in our efforts to protect and restore the Great Lakes, a program that success is entirely dependent on the strength of our relationships and coordination with a vast number of partners. Over the past 3 years, our attention to build relationships have played a major role in the agency's successful efforts towards accelerating our cleanup work as well. Part of this administration's goal for EPA was to refocus the agency on our core values and environmental cleanups, both land and water. Are the very center of what the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency was founded on to begin with. Cleaning up properties so that they no longer pose health and safety hazards to the community, but can also be a source of opportunity and pride is exactly the type of work EPA should be advancing. Not only is EPA looking to advance the agency's core values, we're looking to do so in the most efficient and effective way possible. One way the agency has worked to advance this goal is by bringing consistency to the way regional offices are organized so that regardless of the region you work with, you will have a similar structure and program alignment. Before the realignment in Region 5, our enforcement and compliance assurance programs were separated by media, air, water, and land. Now we have one central enforcement and compliance assurance division, which has encouraged information sharing, coordination, and cross-media training. And although big changes like this come with growing pains, it has absolutely been worth it. One of the outcomes of the region's realignment is a new compliance assurance approach employed by our air enforcement program. As we all know, the primary purpose of civil environmental enforcement is to ensure compliance with environmental rules and regulations. Historically, when EPA found violations during inspections and through other means, the response was often traditional enforcement, where the source is brought back into compliance with a mandatory compliance plan and a civil penalty intended to both recover the economic benefits of noncompliance and to deter future noncompliance of the source and others. But is this always the best approach? Is there something between compliance assistance and the traditional enforcement that can be used to bring facilities into compliance? What really is the best way to deter noncompliance? One important concept is compliance and enforcement is that not all violations are created equal. Some violations cause excess emissions to the environment and harm to the surrounding communities. Some violations make it impossible to determine whether a source is in compliance at all. Other violations, such as small deficiencies in a source's record-keeping procedures, are minor and do not cause environmental harm. At Region 5, we've determined it's not always worth pursuing formal enforcement and a civil penalty for minor violations. Nevertheless, it is our duty to correct noncompliance. The question our air enforcement team has asked itself was, how? Of course, other EPA enforcement programs use informal enforcement tools to address minor violations, such as TSCA notices of noncompliance or EPCRA warning letters that don't entail issuing an administrative order or the assessment of a civil penalty. To add informal enforcement to its toolbox, Region 5's air enforcement program developed the Compliance Assurance Letters, or CAL. This tool is intended to step into the void between compliance assistance and the use of traditional enforcement and will be used if an inspection or other compliance monitoring activities find violations at a source that did not cause excessive air emissions or hidden potential excessive air emissions. The CALs detail a plan that the source should implement to come into compliance and informally request that the source responds within a certain amount of time, detailing the steps they've taken to return to compliance. If the source responds appropriately to the CAL, the case is resolved with no further action. And EPA notifies the source that no additional information is necessary. In 2018, Region 5 has issued about 30 CALs to address Clean Air Act violations. And in virtually all of them, we have received sufficient responses from the source and closed the cases with no further action. Further, we've received excellent feedback from the EPA enforcement staff, and the regulated community. EPA staff appreciates the COWS because it frees them up to address more serious violations, and the regulated community appreciates COWS because it gives them an opportunity to fix minor problems without getting fined. Finally, all of this is achieved while still assuring full compliance with the regulations. We have already been using a similar process in the RCRA program, and we've seen similar results with these informal enforcement letters as well. It is our goal that the regulated community have a clear path and a timeline to achieve compliance, but of course, traditional enforcement will continue to serve as an important role as well. With respect to this, Region 5 has implemented a number of procedures to ensure consistent responses to violations while also enhancing our communication to the facilities and our partners at the local and state level. One of the consistent messages we've been hearing from businesses is that we're not communicating potential violations in a timely manner following inspections, leading to a delay in compliance. It was with this in mind that in 2018, the agency developed and implemented a new policy that will ensure potential violations are communicated at the end of an inspection, and the inspection reports are finalized and shared with the facility within 70 days of an inspection. This policy has already gone far in not only efficiently communicating with businesses, but also ensuring businesses achieve compliance as soon as possible, which, after all, is our ultimate goal: compliance with our environmental laws and regulations. In addition to the inspection report process improvements, another enhancement that we've piloted since 2017 is designed for sources who receive and fully respond to Clean Air Act information requests. In these situations, the company will be notified within 12 months whether the information that was necessary would be further investigated, a process we plan on expanding to all media we have here. We feel that this measure will help subjects of EPA investigation receive much needed closure. Due to the pandemic, there have been numerous products brought to our attention that make false or misleading claims to protect from COVID-19 and other viruses. In response to this, the region formed a task force to quickly evaluate those claims for compliance with FIFRA, and to date have issued over 30 notices of compliance letters encouraging quick removal of these claims from the marketplace. Our FIFRA staff have also stepped up timely evaluations of antimicrobial products, including devices imported into the country, which may be unregistered or making false or misleading COVID-related claims. Within the RCRA Hazardous Waste Program, we have continued to conduct off-site evaluations to implement the RCRA Air Toxic National Compliance Initiative, covering facilities with potentially hazardous air emissions from hazardous waste storage units by issuing information requests for record documenting compliance with those provisions. The RCRA Hazardous Waste Group has also stepped up compliance assurance activities of hazardous waste generators that underreport their actual hazardous waste generation quantities, and by doing so, potentially avoiding routine oversight of state agencies, avoiding state fees, and undermining the level playing field within their industry. In addition to protecting the environment for the citizens of Region 5, we hope these changes will help us maximize our compliance and enforcement resources, ensuring compliance with the regulations we implement, and giving certainty to the regulated community of their compliance status. For those of you who may not be aware of this, this is a big year for EPA. It marks our 50th anniversary. Over the past 50 years, the agency has consistently worked towards our mission of protecting human health and the environment, and has done a great job in doing so. Much of this success, excuse me here. Much of this success is due to the collaboration between our federal partners, states, industry, stakeholder groups, and individual citizens. It is partnerships like this that spark innovation and result in new opportunities to improve our environment for everyone, regardless of the zip code. The fact is, the challenges we are facing today demand a coordinated strategy. The resources, time, and knowledge they require are too heavy a lift for any one of us to bear alone. And given the current state of the world, these struggles are not going to ease up anytime soon. As public sector resources dwindle, the need to pool resources and collaborate has never been greater. As daunting as this may be, it leaves great room for innovation and creativity in the way we approach things. We believe focusing on relationship building will help foster the very innovation we need to achieve a cleaner, safer environment. We have a saying in Region 5, we're better together. We've seen it time and time again, and when it comes to ensuring the health and safety of the residents of Ohio, we must take a collaborative, holistic approach. Environmental improvement and community development are achieved when we work together. And EPA Region 5 will continue to work with all of you to further our progress and protect your communities. I want to thank you for your time, your attention, and your commitment to protecting human health and the environment. And with that said, I'll turn it back over to Dan for Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Harris. Now we're going to begin answering questions that were submitted during today's presentation. And as a reminder, you can still submit questions through the questions pane in your attendee control panel. We'll do our best to answer as many questions as possible. If we don't get to your question, we will reach out to you via email following today's webinar. As mentioned this morning, we have EPA Region 5's Andy Anderson with us to help address questions. And with that, I'll turn it over to Andy to read questions to Director Harris.
Okay, so here I am. I'll be looking at multiple screens here, so please forgive me. I am Andrew Anderson. I am Michael's acting deputy, so that's the role I'm filling today, and I'm glad I'm here to support him and to give you information. But that said, here's your first question, Director Harris. This is expanding on something that you mentioned earlier about getting back to the regulated community when we engage them. So several of my regulated clients who have went through a US EPA inspection where US EPA asked for volumes of information, which was submitted, then US EPA never responded again. Why is this?
Yeah, thanks, Andy, for that question. So as I indicated in the presentation, this has historically been an issue, and the way that we're addressing that issue is coming up with better timeframes to get back to the regulated community. You know, no one likes to submit information and then not hear from the regulator what the status is. So as I indicated in the presentation, we are taking steps to enhance our ability to respond in a more efficient and effective way. And in that process, you will hear from us sooner versus later. For inspections and inspection reports, you should hear from us within 70 business days.
Thank you. Here's the next question. What steps are being taken to make compliance simpler and more straightforward? Relatively simple reporting, such as Tier 2, TRI, and air reporting should not require a consultant. However, the processes for reporting could be a big barrier for those without experience. So what steps, again, are being taken to make compliance simpler and more straightforward?
That's a good question. I believe that, one of the initiatives that we're going to do here in Region 5 is look for opportunities for field days where we have an opportunity to have a meeting with the regulated community as well as our state partners to kind of have a lessons learned or walkthrough for ways to comply in a more efficient and effective way. So if you have things that you would like to submit to US EPA, or ideas rather that you would like to submit to US EPA, please do so, and we can take that under consideration and try to form those field days to help out with the compliance. There's also the Small Business Association that I know that they serve that purposes for small businesses as well. So it's kind of be a two-pronged approach for larger facilities or larger businesses. We would probably take the lead, but for smaller businesses, I would refer to the Small Business Association to start that conversation, who I'm well connected with as well.
Okay, thank you. Definitely, and you mentioned this in part during your speech, challenges have abounded in regard to COVID. There's a lot going on for all of us in work life and personal life and protecting the environment. Can you address a little bit more some of the challenges that you and your division have been part of, such as remote working, the ability to do inspections, meeting goals that the states or the EPA have put out, all those things?
Yeah, I would say that all of the above are challenges. The remote working was initially a challenge because, it just kind of hit us all at once. But I think, at this point, we've pretty much got our sea legs, and the IT component of remote working is gotten a lot better. People are becoming more accustomed to that. Another challenge that we have is inspections. First and foremost, the safety of our inspectors as well as the public is at the forefront of that. So going out in the field and conducting inspections in a safe manner with the COVID in mind is a challenge. And going into facilities and being screened and going through the procedures to make sure that we conduct inspections safely has been a challenge. Some of the reporting has somewhat been a challenge, but I think that with the remote working and the technology that we have the ability to receive the information electronically, be it scanned. So we've gotten over that hump as well. So I think what still remains is getting out in the field and conducting on-site inspections. That continues to be a challenge with COVID, but we're working through that and applying job hazard analysis for our inspectors to make sure it's safe for them and safe for the regulated community that we're inspecting.
Adding on to that question, can you describe how EPA has tried to be flexible with the regulated community in terms of how we conduct business?
Yes, absolutely. So when this whole COVID pandemic first hit, we took a hard look at what type of flexibilities that we could apply, knowing that the regulated community would be in the same situation that we are and everyone else is, and having a tough time to protect their employees and be able to comply with the environmental regulations. So we have instituted a number of flexibilities of ensuring that we extend the timeframes for getting us the information that we request. if there's challenges associated with responding to any of the requests that we have. We've been very flexible with providing those extended timeframes in order for the regulated community to get back to us. And we continue to do that, considering that we are still in the throes of this pandemic. And, the key is for the regulated community to document, some of the challenges that they have as it relates to complying with the regulations. And we'll look at that and take that into consideration and be flexible in reviewing that information.
Okay, thank you. Here's a comment from somebody, which I'm going to follow up with a question. I appreciate the CAL approach, the compliance assurance letter approach. I've been in several states, and this is the most business-friendly state EPA I've experienced. Can you talk a little bit more about the CALs and how they seem to be working?
Yeah. So as I indicated in the presentation, the whole concept with the CAL is to recognize that not all violations are created equal, and it just makes good business sense and common sense to be able to address a potential noncompliance that may not have a direct effect on human health in the environment. And once those situations are identified, it's just it makes good business sense just to have a conversation around that and come up with informal plan for the facility to come back into compliance with whatever the non-compliance is. So it's just another option within the enforcement and compliance toolbox that we think is appropriate for the right types of violations that don't have effect on human health in the environment.
Great. Director Harris, what do you see as being Region 5's enforcement priorities for the near future?
Well, I think that we're going to continue to focus on the national compliance initiatives. Those are at the forefront of our priorities, and we'll continue to focus in on those. As far as subsets of those, it would depend on the geographical location of whatever EPA agency region is focused on. So that varies from region to region. But first and foremost, we're going to focus on the national compliance initiatives that we've established.
Thank you. You mentioned as in part of your talk the fact that enforcement programs have come together roughly a year ago, a little bit more than a year ago, into one division that you head up. What opportunities have you seen, or do you think you will see, in regard to having all enforcement in one division and people under the same jurisdiction? How does that help things?
Well, one of the things, I kind of mentioned this during the presentation, is the ability to have all of the programs under one division gives a tremendous amount of flexibility of utilizing the resources that we have for the region for enforcement. It also provides a tremendous amount of cross-training. Historically, you've had inspectors that focus solely on air or solely on water or solely on land and chemicals. But with conducting those inspections, sometimes there's overlap in what an inspector would see. But if they're not trained in order to know how to deal with that, for example, if an inspector is conducting an inspection for the air regs, and then they see something related to NPDES, the water permit program, historically, they've not had the opportunity to be trained in that. And now we do have that opportunity. So now you're more efficient within the inspectors to see and have the facility correct things sooner versus later, versus having another inspector come out at a different time for a different media. So it's advantageous for the facility, and it's advantageous for the citizens that we're protecting to have those deficiencies corrected in a timely manner.
Okay, great. One of the things that I've experienced alongside Director Harris, because I'm his deputy, is looking into how to conduct business in the field better, as Director Harris has referenced a couple times. And one of the things that we've been exploring with our EPA headquarters office, as well as the states that we work with, is remote or virtual inspections. And definitely, as we look into it, it brings challenges. But we also have this additional piece called off-site compliance monitoring. So Mike, can you explain a little bit about both of those, kind of what our experience has been so far?
Yeah, absolutely, Andy. Thank you. So for the concept of off-site compliance monitoring, when COVID hit, we had to seriously take a look at ways that we can continue to protect human health in the environment and making sure that the regulated community understands or what they need to do to stay in compliance or to come into compliance. Aside from an on-site inspection, as I mentioned earlier, the off-site compliance monitoring gives us the ability to communicate with facilities to receive information so that we can make a determination if they are in compliance. Now, if that receiving that information requires an on-site inspections, that we still are have the ability to do that. But a lot of times like I said, with technology and the ability to receive information, be it electronically or virtually, we have the ability to determine if there's any compliance issues with a particular facility. So this is something that we've really honed in on and stepped up our game as it relates to being able to ensure that compliance is being met in this during this pandemic. And so that's really the concept of offsite compliance and virtual inspection, is not to replace on-site inspections, but in the stage that we're at right now with COVID and the pandemic, it gives us another tool in the toolkit or the toolbox to be able to determine if compliance is being met.
Thank you. One of the things that Director Harris has often heard me say, and I've used in other circumstances, is never waste a hard time to grow and get better at what you do. And obviously, COVID is a hard time. It's forcing us to, and all of you, I'm sure, to look at how you conduct business and how you relate to others and that sort of stuff. So in that context, I love this question. Does Region 5 and the agency as a whole have any plans for eliminating paper submittals? For example, RCRA corrective action reports are often several volumes, but could they be submitted electronically? In my opinion, this would not only reduce the cost of the submittal, but would increase the efficiency of the review. And I add COVID being an additional burden on that, because something as simple as going in to get the mail, it's not so simple anymore.
Right. Absolutely. That's a great question. And any type of improvements that the regulated community have, or any ideas for improvements, the agency, EPA, we're open to hear some of those suggestions. And as you indicated, Andy, when we're in the COVID situation now, and we're thinking of those efficiencies as well. So lessons learned that we're pulling together now as it relates to how we're conducting business in this in this environment is something that we're taking a serious look at. And are we going to be able to implement everything all at once? I don't think so. But I think that we need to really consider what type of efficiencies we can implement to make it more efficient and effective, not only for US EPA, but for the regulated community as well.
Great. So you definitely talked about in your presentation, working alongside other states, the public, businesses, amplifying on that. In Ohio and our other states, how does EPA work alongside the states and these other partners, for that matter, for environmental protection? How do we do that? How important do we see that?
Oh, that's extremely important. Thank you, Andy. So that's extremely important. As I indicated, and you may have heard me say that several times in the presentation, that it's crucial to have our develop a strong relationship with our co-regulators and local and the general public and the regulated community. We want to make sure that the communication is clear and everyone understands exactly, what needs to happen in order to protect human health in the environment and to comply with the environmental regulations that we have. And partnering with our state co-regulators, it's them that are on the forefront within the states. They're the for lack of a better term, the first responders or the first organization that the public would interact with. And so it's crucial for us to make sure that we have a strong relationship and understanding and communication with our state partners as it relates to in implementing the environmental regulations that we're responsible for. It's also important for the regulated community to understand how to comply with those regulations. So if there's any confusion or any clarification that needs to be had, I definitely encourage that to happen on the local and federal level in order to protect human health and the environment. And that's one of the things that we seriously would like to enhance and continue to further develop as we move forward.
Okay, I don't know to what degree you're able to answer this question in the bigger sense, but are you able to speak about any budget constraints, either in the past year or previous years, that have resulted in difficulties for the agency to complete its workloads or other responsibilities?
I don't have anything specific that I can say about it, other than budgetary constraints are always a challenge. And, one of the things that not only we have to deal with, but our state partners and local municipalities, that's always, something that is at the forefront in conducting the business that we're responsible for. So, as the challenges come our way, as I indicated in the presentation, I think it's important for us to collaborate and think of innovative ways to address the challenges that we may have in order to further our applications and endeavors in protecting human health and the environment. So again, I indicated that we're better together, and that couldn't be more important than today. So I think the way to answer that is to look for ways that we can work stronger together in order to move the program forward in the most efficient and effective manner.
Great. And Director Harris, as a last question, is there anything else you wanted to amplify on that you already mentioned, but maybe you want to go into a little bit more detail, or maybe something you didn't mention that would relay some information about how we conduct work or what our priorities are, or anything that comes to mind?
I think one of the things that, I really want to communicate in this platform is that it really, we're really hitting our strides with the Enforcement and Compliance Assurance Division in Region 5. And the fact that we were able to realign and combine all of the media under the enforcement efforts for all the media under one division is a huge win for the agency. And by doing that, our state partners and the regulated community will start to see the benefit of that. And I encourage any type of innovative ideas or concepts that our co-regulators or the regulated community may have as it relates to interaction with US EPA. I encourage you to share that with us. We're amenable to receiving feedback of that nature, and look forward to working collaboratively with you. So if I could say anything, I'm really looking forward to continuing to enhance the relationships that we have to protect human health in the environment. Andy, I think you're on mute.
Okay, Dan, we're going to punt back to you.
All right. Thank you, Director Harris, and thank you, Deputy Director Anderson, and thank you, everyone, for attending today's keynote presentation and submitting such excellent questions. Once you leave today's webinar, you will receive a survey, and we value your feedback, and we greatly appreciate it if you let us know how we're doing, and let us know if there's anything else that we can do to further assist you. A certificate of attendance will also be included via email about a day or so after this session. Be sure to check out our upcoming webinars as part of Ohio EPA's Virtual Compliance Assistance Conference. To make it even easier to register for upcoming sessions, we've also attached our conference agenda to this presentation. Again, thank you for joining us today and have a great day.